Welcome to my F1 channel. Welcome to Peter on Pole. My name is Peter in pole position. Brand new series. We're going to kick things off with the docuseries Drive to Survive Season 1, Episode 1. Here's my review. So I'm starting again watching everything from Season 1 in the build up to obviously Season 3 to come out later on this year. This has been a fantastic series. From the start, I was so hooked. The intro grabbed me. I was reliving the emotions again. You know, it's the season of 2018 and you just... it's just epic. I love the way that the way Netflix have really, I don't know, sort of brought the suspense. It's like being in the cinema. There's so much intensity. There's so much emotion. There's a huge build up. It's a fantastic watch. Please go back and watch episode 1 again because it's fantastic. I love how, like, you know, even though it's about previous seasons or it's an old season, it doesn't really matter because the way they capture the footage of whatever happens in that season, you relive that moment, you reminisce about it, you think, oh yeah, oh my god, yeah, that happened and this happened, and it's fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant. I recommend it. And it's not even just to be as a Formula One fan. It's like watching a film. It's literally just like watching a film. A great film hooks you in. You don't have to necessarily be involved in the topic or like the sport, if you will. It's fantastic. It's a great start. And yeah, from the off, that banter from Danny Ricciardo, he talks about, you know, in the intro, he says, you know, hi, Danny Ricciardo, I'm a mechanic. And it's just like, you know, hilarious from the jump. And then he gets into a bit more serious. And what's brilliant is Danny Ricciardo is always known as that happy guy, that smiley sort of character, very jolly kind of person. And then you come to realize that he's also got that sort of that mean streak in him, in a sense of he's competitive. He does take things seriously. He's very much got that killer instinct in him as well. I mean, this is a person who, from a young age, you know, he's from Australia and moves to Europe at a very young age to become the world's best in motor racing. So to see that happen as a young kid, you know, they got footage of him from childhood, which is brilliant. I love that. It's just, it's fantastic stuff. You get a good like image of his father and his mother, and you know, they start to get sort of interwoven in the series as well. You become like, you know, you sort of become part of the family. You sort of feel with them, and you're happy with them, and you're sad with them. It's epic. I love how as well they transition from the bigger teams, so like, you know, your Red Bulls and so on, and then they transition sort of to Haas, like to the lesser teams or the teams with the smaller budgets, because there's like a moment in between Danny Ricciardo and Haas where they sort of say, you know, in Formula One, it's really about the team with the biggest budgets usually produces the best cars, and the teams at the back of the grid have like a fraction of what of the budget that the bigger teams have. And it kind of just, you know, it made me think, man, if I didn't know anything about Formula One, like, this is a great way to get in, because you sort of start to understand a little bit what they mean. You know, why is this so important? Why does this happen? Why is that happening? And if you've never watched the sport before, I highly recommend it. And I'm pretty sure this is exactly why so many fans who are Formula One fans today, that came because of the series Drive to Survive. It just makes perfect sense. Like, this was the reason why. It was so entertaining. It was so, you know, enthralling. There was so much emotion. It was so tense. It was so happy. It was everything. You get an introduction to Gunter Steiner. Gunter Steiner, you know, in the beginning, where you don't really know much about him, you know, from the Haas team. And all of a sudden, you know, we become like, I know this guy. Like, all of a sudden you feel like you know the person, you know, because of the way he is. He's very open. He's very honest. He seems like he's just true to himself. And, you know, and he seems human. Like, when you think of people in that sort of in that category, you know, technical directors or, you know, team principals and so on, you think of them as like they're very far and distant, they're not relatable. But man, Gunter was quite a relatable person. And I think that's what made us gravitate towards him. And I think that's probably why Netflix probably had like a good episode on him, because, you know, I'm sure they were shocked at the footage they got from him. And just even as they're talking throughout the series, whether it's the team principal, whether it's the driver, anybody involved in the team, anybody involved deep in Formula One, I love hearing them speak. I love hearing them talk. I love listening to them. I love seeing the behind the scenes footage. Netflix done a great job with that. And there's plenty more in the episodes to come. I mean, there's so, you know, you almost think, how on earth did they get the go ahead to go and do this? Because you'd think some teams would want to keep, you know, media and things like that well away. So hats off to Netflix. Whoever secured that bag, I mean, you deserve a raise. There's a moment where Gunter Steiner speaks to Martin Brundle and tells him that there's 212 people, members of staff at Haas, and Brundle's face was just a picture, because he goes on to say that Mercedes have more people on holiday at a time. So the team was really small, and Haas, you fell in love with Haas straight away because they were the underdog. It was a brand new team from America, and it's a team that you just felt the connection with, because you want them to do well. You've got the personality of Gunter Steiner, and the narrative straight from the off. You sort of feel like, once you get to know somebody, I don't know what it is. Maybe because they're being open with you and honest with you, you kind of share a bond and a connection with that person or with that team. And so from the off, it was a case of, let's see the underdog triumph. And they had been good up until now as well. So they'd really overachieved up until now. So yeah, it was you just want to see more of Haas. You just want to see more of it. Now we transition over to Christian Horner, and it's crazy because the way they bring him into the scene, it's as if he's the villain already, and yet he hasn't said a word yet, and it's just a bit like, ask many people, Christian Horner probably comes out as one of the worst people in Drive to Survive, in the sense of he's the villain, not that he's a horrible human being. I wouldn't go that far, but because I really like Christian Horner. I'm actually quite entertained by him, and I love what his career, his trajectory on the come up with Red Bull has been nothing but phenomenal. 4-time champion as team principal, and I was just intrigued to hear him speak. The man is a good narrator. My God, he can talk. The way he speaks, the way he creates a story. He can create a story. Honestly, I see his future after Formula One in filmmaking or something, because the way he talks, it captivates you. You really start to, your heart starts to race a little bit. I found my heart racing a bit, during the episode, and it was a bit like, man. But then I noticed that from the off, Netflix are trying to paint this picture of Christian Horner to be this kind of, this kind of evil kind of guy in a weird way. Like, it's not straight away, but just the music, the sound, what they used to enter him in, and even the way his setting as well, where he sat. Behind him is a bit darker of a background, and it made me think, I wonder why they've gone with that with Christian Horner. But we'll just have to wait and see as the season goes on what happens. Netflix have done brilliant here. When it comes to the race weekend, you really do feel the nerves. You really feel the pressure. You're not even the one driving, and yet you feel tense. You feel tense for every single driver. You feel tense for every single team. There's thousands of fans. By the way, the fans, missing the fans was just such a big thing. Like, you couldn't get away from it. Like, not having fans this year was just so weird. Like, in Formula One, you could probably get away with it. As a sport, you could probably get away with the fact that there's no fans. But when you're watching a Netflix documentary and it includes the fans in there, it makes it that much more special. God knows what they're going to do for the 2020 season. But for the 2018 season, man, it was all on deck. Australia, it was buzzing. Everyone was excited. Everyone was, ready to go. It's just, what it's like. Formula One, when Formula One ends, like November, December time, March feels like an age away. So to have it back, everyone is pumped. Everyone is excited. Everyone's gassed. And then, it's just, but then the nerves come with it. All the anxiety, all the nerves, it all comes with it. So, yeah, I'll tell you what else was really mad. When you hear the drivers breathing as they're driving through the circuit, oh my God. Like, you can feel they are very much nervous as well. The first couple of laps, like, they were doing the qualifying round. And just, Danny Ricciardo especially, I think Magnussen was another one. They had, you could just hear them talking back to their radio, the team radio, but you can just hear this breath coming through the mic as well. And it was just like, flipping hell, you realise, goodness me, this is real life. Like, this is actually a thing. Like, these Formula One drivers are not robots. They're human beings. They're bloody superstars, but they are human beings nonetheless. And it's just, it amazed me how much I felt like so tense, man. I was like, I've seen this race before. I know how the season ends and everything else, but you forget all about it. You forget when you're watching the series again, you just forget completely what happens next. I try not to sort of preempt anything, or I sit in the moment and I watch it and I drink it all in, sort of thing. Gunter Steiner then makes this point about, there are new people into the Haas team, especially with the pit stops. So he sort of gives like a team briefing before the race goes on, or before the weekend, which I thought was a bit weird, because I thought, why have they brought that clip in there. Then you go to find out in the race. I mean, Haas, they could have finished 4th and 5th and they had an absolute disaster. It was absolutely, the situation where the mechanics for both Romain Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen did not secure their wheel properly onto the car. And as they go back out, I mean, it's within seconds that the loose tire obviously affects the car, and they've had to stop the car entirely. They can't bring it back in and try and put the wheel properly on. You just lose far too much time. There's no point in finishing the race. But they lose 2 cars in 2 laps, and yet they were looking at 4th and 5th position. And for Haas, that is incredible. They were ahead of the Red Bulls. They were behind the Ferraris and Mercedes. And then it all just comes crumbling down. And Gunter Steiner sums it up very well, where he says, in Formula One, the highs are very high and the lows are very low. It's a complete, the spectrum is either end completely. And in both situations, when you saw Kevin Magnussen's car stop and you saw Grosjean's car stop as well, you felt for them, because even they can't believe it. Both drivers were mentioning that, is this a dream? Like, is this actually happening to me? And then Gunter Steiner says, when you see it on TV, when you see your car stop and you see your driver have to get out, you think this is a nightmare. And it's amazing how, like, although in Formula One these things can happen, when it does happen, it's still so surreal. And at that moment as well, reliving that moment, it was very much like, oh my God, how could this happen to them? It's a mistake that was caused by their own team, not necessarily that the car was unreliable or, engine failure or a crash, nothing like that. It was them going into the pit stop. And, Kevin Magnussen makes this point of, on the circuit, it is down to the driver. The driver has to make sure he does his part and does his job. Then you go into the pit stop and it's not in your hands whatsoever. And it's when you realize that you're in a team. And I just love the way that sort of Magnussen kind of explains that. And it makes you, reminds yourself that it's not just the driver here in the situation, it's everyone involved. And to the extent where that one mechanic who's dealing with the front left tire can flop the whole race for that team, for that weekend, lose valuable points. And it's all about, getting points. Obviously, the higher you finish, the more money you get the following year. So there's so many things relying on a race that's an hour and a half. It's intense and it's insane. Like I said before, I love the way Christian Horner narrates on the first episode, and you get in the mind and the head of a driver and a team principal and a team on the day. He says, he blocks everything out moments before the race, no distraction whatsoever, full focus. And the way that the documentary kind of pans to the grid, the music is just right. Everything, there's a lot of stillness in that moment, and the pressure is on. You can cut the tension with a knife, as they say. And then you get Danny Ricciardo's parents. I mean, the mum was so nervous and scared. I mean, she felt it was like her son was going in for like brain surgery, where this is make or break. It was, you could see her, they got shots of her like leg, always shaking her leg, and her, biting her nails, head in her hands. It was, and you could see almost like she's almost welling up, and it's like, this is because it's her son. And she has a moment in the clip as well in episode 1 where she says, whenever she's watched drivers, all she's ever thought about is that's somebody's son. And God forbid if there's accidents that happen and crashes. And she was like, I never thought I would be one of the mothers now watching my son. And she sort of goes through the emotions again of how she felt for others, and now she's having to, and so for her going through it, it's like it was unbearable for her. It was amazing how the tension, the emotion, everything. She just wishes that she could take her son out of it. All she cared about was have a safe race. That's all she cared about, and anything else was a bonus. And even the dad as well. The dad, looked cool on the outside, but he also explains his emotions, and he's just like, he even says, God, I don't even want to mention it. Like, God forbid if anything happens, I don't even want to mention it. It's the case of get my boy home and we'll be okay. Now, the mum and dad happened to be there because they were from Australia. The first race of the weekend was in Australia. So it's not like they travel with him everywhere. But I guess that's what even makes it a bit more tense, is where, if we're home and it's like, I see you, I guess Danny only sees the parents like once a year or whatever, twice a year max. But yeah, it's just that thing of all of a sudden, the shift of the program just changes, where it's like it becomes this thing of safety, and you're like, you're getting worried about life and death, and it's mad. Like the episode 1 I'm talking about, like this is taking me from place to place. It's flinging me everywhere, and I'm just loving the way that it really brings out the emotion of the people on film, and what it made me feel like. It was like, this is. I mean, at the end of episode 1, I was sort of thinking, bloody hell, I can't wait for the rest of this. But I was like, can I take, like when you binge watch something, I can't binge watch it because it was too much emotion involved. And maybe because I got myself engrossed in it too much, maybe, I don't know. But they've done it well, man. They've played me. I'll tell you that, Netflix have played me well. Post-race, you get Gunter Steiner, being able to face the media because he's thinking, look, screw it, I got to front up to them. Look, we've had a bad day. It was a good weekend looking, but then it ended bad. But he still faces up. Whereas Kevin Magnussen, you see him talking to like his, I guess it's either his personal assistant or like the PR sort of person that's with him. And he's saying, look, do me a favor, help me out with these guys. In terms of, because I think the clip was basically a media person coming to speak to Magnussen. And he was just like, look, sorry, mate, I don't want to talk right now. And he's walking off with them. And he sort of mentions, look, dude, help me out with these guys, because it's just going to be on top. Everyone's going to be asking Magnussen, well, what did you think? What did you think? And I think Magnussen, obviously if you're in the know with Formula One, people know Magnussen's very emotional. He's got that temperament of, he will let it all out. He will say what he feels. He doesn't care. He doesn't pull any punches. And I think that's great for the media. It's great content for the media. So they try to obviously get involved and ask questions. What did you think? What did you think? And he's just like, look, just get the hell away from me. And it was good to just, I just love the inside stuff of what goes through the mind of a driver. And what I love about it, it's not even like on a gossip thing, but it's more so just, they are human, man. Like, you realize that, oh yeah, they are actually human. They go through so many things. And also you just want to know, like, there's so much, there's this allure of what famous people do, or what celebrities do, what sportsmen do. And then when you sort of get to peel behind the curtain a little bit, it's like, oh wow, like I feel like I've been put in the know here, which is, which feels good. Gunter Steiner on the phone again to Gene Haas, this time for something completely different, because he's having to explain to them what happened. And you imagine you being Gunter Steiner having to explain to the owner of Haas, this is what's happened. This is why we didn't finish the race. Never mind, we finished maybe mid-table or near the back. We didn't finish. And then explaining to your boss that, yeah, it was kind of our fault why we didn't finish. It weren't nothing to do with anybody else. So, that must have been horrible to explain. I wouldn't want to be in his shoes at all. And yet, qualifying, he was on the phone at the end of qualifying talking to Gene like, oh, what a weekend, what a Saturday it was. We qualified brilliantly. We've had a great day. This is unbelievable, onwards and upwards. And the next day, literally, it just goes. So all the hard work you've done up until the Saturday, up until the Sunday race, and it could just go just in a moment like that. It's just, honestly, it's a barrel of emotions, man. It's overwhelming. Then you get the clip of the mechanic trying to explain to Gunter Steiner about what happened and why the wheels were not put on properly. Pit stops are fast and they're quick, and it's so easy to get them wrong. And when the mechanic's explaining to Gunter, I mean, his face is red, he is distraught. You feel for the guy, and he's trying to explain. You can't even look at Gunter in the face or in the eyes, because it's just like, how do I explain this? Like, what an absolute mess this was. I don't know if I messed this up for the whole team. We could have had some great points this weekend, and it was purely down to this one guy in one of the pit stops, and then it was down to another guy in the other pit stop. It's just, honestly, what a horrible day. But Gunter at the end, it felt like, oh my God, he's about to kill him. And then at the end, it's just like he pats him on the back and he just says, look, on to the next one kind of thing. The guy's saying he's sorry. And yeah, it's horrible, man. If you've ever been in trouble before, like, that pit in the stomach, that feeling is just so horrible, man. It's bad. I like how twice it was mentioned in the episode that no Australian had finished on the top 3 of an Australian Grand Prix, of the home Grand Prix, or had classified. So I don't know whether someone's actually ever finished in the top 3, but then it was taken away. But they kept mentioning the word classified, and I didn't understand why. But you felt like that. So Danny Ricciardo's in 4th place, and on the last lap, I think he's behind Kimi Raikkonen, and he just finishes in 4th. You sort of feel like the narrative was going, oh my God, can Danny finish 3rd? And it's one of these things about, in movies and things like that, you can make things up, you can make the story, you can make the narrative. But in a situation like this, the narrative has got to has to be sort of, it's almost weird, like the race, the live action creates the narrative, and whatever that is, it can be the case. Now in another film, you know, Danny Ricciardo finishes in the top 3 or even wins the race, you know, because it was all on him for this first episode. It seemed to be quite fixed on him. There's still so many more drivers to come, as we'll find out in the other episodes. But him finishing just behind 3rd place, it was like, oh, okay, you know, we would have liked this story, but this is real life. This is not, you know, it's not fiction. So it was just good to sort of see they wanted to paint that narrative of, you know, can we get an Australian on the podium? Because Danny Ricciardo is more than capable of getting a podium, and it's astonishing that he's never been in Australia. Then you see the clip of his mum. His mum's like disappointed that he just missed out on the 3rd place. But then there's this smile that comes afterwards where, and I read it straight away as she's just glad her son is alive. You know, it's one of those like, I want him to be home safe. I want him to finish the race, and anything else is a bonus, as they mentioned. And I think there was that thing of, it was a bittersweet of, oh, he's missed out on the podium, but I'm not gonna lie, I'd rather that he's safe and he's alive, you know. So it was one of those, her sadness turned into a smile very quickly. She was proud of her son, you know. It's just one of those where you just looked at it and you just thought, man, this woman, like, you know, I don't know what it is. I just felt towards the mum and dad where they were just hoping for the best for their son, and no scratches on Danny this weekend. So that was excellent. That was excellent to see. It was good to just see them a bit more relaxed and happy, hugs and kisses afterwards. And it was just lovely to watch. But yeah, that was episode 1. And I think it was only half an hour or so. And yeah, there was so much to get into. And I don't know, maybe I might make the videos a bit shorter, longer. Comment below, let me know what you think. But yeah, honestly, it's just been an epic start to the season 1, Drive to Survive, episode 1. Coming up next, episode 2. Oh man, and when they showed the preview to what's coming next, oh my god. And I don't usually like watching that, but Carlos Sainz comes in the mix, Alonso's in the mix, Verstappen's in the mix. Oh, it gets tasty, let's put it that way. But yeah, make sure you comment, like, let me know what you think. With that said, people, lights out.